Hello and welcome to the introduction for this course. What you should know before you take the course. You should have a basic working knowledge of using a computer. You should also have a basic working knowledge of using the internet. Who should take the course? This course is a beginner's course. So beginners to Python, beginners to programming, and beginners to web development will be suited for this course. What will you learn on the course? We'll start off by installing Python and PyCharm. We'll then go on to define some functions. We'll learn about the function return keyword. We'll learn about using the default parameter value. We'll learn about keyword arguments. We'll also learn about using functions to return other functions. We'll learn about nesting functions. We'll learn about using functions as argument, that is passing functions as arguments. We'll also learn about anonymous functions. The course format is video based and the duration is 2 hours. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video on what is Python. Python is a general purpose programming language. This means it can be used to write computer programs for various things like games, data science, websites, and so on. Python is also a high-level programming language. High-level programming languages mean that the languages of writing computer instructions in a way that is easily understandable and close to human language. Python is portable, which means we can run Python programs in the various different operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, Linux without any changes. Python is an interpreted language. Python is called an interpreted language because it goes through an interpreter which turns code you write into the language understood by your computer's processor. Python is strongly typed. Strongly typed languages don't convert data from one type to another type automatically. Python has a huge set of libraries. A Python library is a collection of programs you can incorporate into your own program without writing code for them. Let's take a look at a list of application types you can create with Python. Web applications. These are applications you can access using a web browser. Android applications. These are applications that runs on Android devices like Android phones and tablets. Games. You can create various types of games with Python. Scientific applications. You can create various types of scientific applications with Python. System administration applications. So you can use Python to create applications to monitor various types of systems. You can also create console applications. A console application basically is a computer program designed to be used via a text-only computer interface. Let's take a look at a list of software applications that have been created using Python. So some of these are quite famous and popular. First on the list is YouTube, and then we have Google, we have Dropbox. This program lets you save files to a cloud-based service that you can then access from anywhere in the world. We've also got Reddit. Reddit is one of the biggest open communities on the web. You have a question you want to talk about, something in specific, or if you want to find tons of information regarding a particular topic, for example, gardening or anything, you can just look on Reddit and find related information. Next, we have Spotify. Spotify allows you to listen to ad-free music of your choice. This is a streaming service that allows you to stream music without any advertisement. Finally, we've got Instagram. Instagram is very popular. It has both an app side and also a website as well. These are just a few list items of software that were created using Python. There are so many others, but these are just some few that you may have come across. So that is it for this video on what is Python. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. This video is about how to download and install Python on Windows-based computers. To check if Python is installed on your computer, you need to open up the command prompt and type in the following command, which is Python space -- version. I have got my command prompt open, so I'm going to type in the command Python space -- version, and then you press enter. You should get this message displayed saying Python is not recognized as an internal or external command. This proves that you haven't got Python installed. So I'm just going to exit out of this command prompt by clicking on the X, and we have the website for Python. So this is the official website to download Python. The link is displayed on the screen. That will give you access to the download page of Python. So click on the Downloads tab, which is this tab here, and the current version as of the time I am recording this video is Python 3.72. Next, you can click on the button that says Python 3.72 to begin the download. So click on that and the download should begin. So you can see the download here on the bottom left hand corner of the screen. So we'll give that a few minutes to complete the download. The next thing we're going to do is install Python from the downloaded file. To begin the installation, on the bottom left hand corner is the downloaded file. Just click on it to run the Python installation and you'll be presented with this screen. I'm just going to minimize the other screen so we can see the installation screen properly. The setup screen provides some information as to where Python is going to be installed, which it tells you this is where it's going to be installed for me. It also tells you what else is going to be installed. So it says it's going to install idle and it's going to install pip. Next, on the bottom here, we've got a box that says add Python 3.7 to path. Make sure you click inside that box to make it checked. And then once you've got that box checked, click on this install now button to begin the installation. So click, and that should start the installation. Once the installation is finished, you will get the message saying setup was successful. You can just click to close the setup box. Next thing we want to do is check that Python is installed. To check that we have definitely got Python installed, we need to type in the following command inside the command prompt. So you type in Python space, you do -- version, and then you press enter, and that gives you the current version of Python. You can see it displays version 3.72. So this concludes this video on the download and installation of Python. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I will show you how to install Python 3 on a Mac. By default, Python comes pre-installed with all Macs, but the version is quite old. So it comes pre-installed with version 2.7. The current versions of Python being used is Python 3x. So let's open up our terminal to check the version of Python that we have installed. So this is my terminal. So you type in Python, you do a space, -- version, and press enter, and that gives you the current version installed on your Mac. So this is a version that comes pre-installed. It is possible to have both version 2 and 3 installed. So version 2 and 3 can coexist on the same machine. So let's go over to the official Python website and download Python version 3x. X meaning the current version. As of the time of recording this video, the current version of Python, if you go to downloads, it gives you the current version. So the current version is 3.7.2. All right. So to begin the download, just click on the button and it will just drop the download in the download folder. We give it a few minutes to complete. You can see it here. It's downloading. So once that blue bar is completed, we know that it has completed the download. So just give it a few minutes to complete. So once the download is completed, you can see here it gives you a little brown box on the bottom. Just click on the brown box and it shows you what's in there, which is a PKG file. So it tells you open in Finder. So click this to open it in Finder. Now this is what was downloaded. So just double click on it and that will launch the installer. So I'm just going to minimize everything else so that we can have access to the installer screen. So feel free to read through what's on the screen. Click continue. You can scroll through and read through all this. It just gives you some important information about the version. Click continue and you can check out the history and the license if you've got time to do that. Otherwise, click continue and you need to agree to the license agreements before you can progress with the installation. So click agree and click install. It will prompt you for your password. So enter your password and click install. And you can see here it started the installation. So I'm just gonna give it a few minutes to complete the installation. Installation is complete. So these are all the stuff that it basically installs. So when you install Python, it also installs all this, the idle and everything else. So I'm just going to exit that at the moment. It's just telling you what it has installed. And then here it tells you the installation was completed successfully. Congratulations, Python 3.7.2 for Mac OS 10.9 or later was successfully installed. So feel free to close the box, and it tells you here, do you want to move the Python installer to the trash now that we've completed? I would say yes, move to trash, because we've done the installation. Next thing is to open up the terminal and let's check for the version of Python. So to check the version of Python that we have installed, we need to type in Python 3 and do space -- version. If we typed in just Python, it will return Python 2, which we don't want. It tells me I've got Python 3.72. If we were to just type in Python and do a space -- version and press enter, it gives you version 2.7. So it's very important when you are trying to develop or create things in Python, you have to use the correct version of Python that you are referring to. For example, if I wanted to do something interactive and I typed in Python, to give me the Python shell, and I can do simple maths. I'll do 6 plus 6, I press enter, it gives me the answer of 12. Now if I want to exit, this is called the Python shell. If I want to exit that, I type in exit and parentheses, press enter, and that will exit the shell. If I need to clear my screen, I type in clear and that clears the screen. Now if I want to access Python 3 shell, I type in Python and then 3. If you notice, it tells me here Python 3.7.2. So very important to type in the correct version of Python when you are trying to develop or experiment. So again, we can do a simple math. I do 8 plus 7, it gives you 15. So we just exit, type in exit and then the parentheses, and that will exit the Python shell. So this concludes the installation of Python 3 on a Mac. Thanks very much. If you had any problems during the installation, please feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to help out. Thanks and bye for now. Hello and welcome. This video is about how to download and install PyCharm on a Windows-based computer. What is PyCharm? PyCharm is a Python IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So PyCharm can be used to create applications that are written in Python. It allows you to write, to run and test your application from within the IDE. PyCharm is widely used by Python developers. It is cross-platform, which means it can be used on a Windows, a Mac OS, or a Linux-based computer. PyCharm is developed by a company called JetBrains. PyCharm can be downloaded from the link displayed on the screen. To download PyCharm, you need to click on the download button, and that will give you two options. You've got the professional and the community. The professional is a full-featured IDE for development, and can be used on a trial basis before you pay. But eventually, after your trial expires, you'll be expected to pay for it. We've also got the community version, which is a lightweight IDE that can be used for Python and scientific development. So that is the option we are going to go for. So I'm going to click on the download button to begin the download for the community. You can see the file here being downloaded on the bottom left-hand corner of my screen. Next, let's install PyCharm from the file that was downloaded. So the bottom left-hand corner is the PyCharm file that was downloaded. So I'm just going to give it a click to run the installation file. So give it a few minutes and it should pop open a screen. You may get a user account control, and just click yes or click run, and that will give you this setup screen. Click next and just accept the destination. It tells you the space required, the space you have got. Click next. All right, and then you can create a shortcut on your desktop if you wish to do so. So you have a 32-bit launcher or a 64-bit launcher. So I'm going to click on that to create an icon on my desktop. You can also update the context menu if you wish to do so, but I'm only going to leave that. You can also update the path variable if you need, but if you click that option, you will need to restart your computer. So I'm going to leave that for now, and I'll click next, and I'll click install, and that should begin the installation. So you can see here is dropped the icon on my desktop. So we wait for it to complete the installation. Once the installation has been completed, you get the screen saying completing PyCharm Community Edition setup. So you can either run it by checking the box or you can finish. So I'm just going to click to finish, and that is my icon. So that is it for this video. In this video, I downloaded and installed the Python IDE called PyCharm. Many thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to download and install PyCharm. PyCharm is a Python IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's a tool that has all the tools that you need to develop various types of application. We are going to download PyCharm from the JetBrains website. JetBrains are the developers or the makers of PyCharm. So let's go over to the jetbrains.com website, and they also have other tools, not just PyCharm. In this video, we are going to focus on PyCharm. So these are all the IDs they do. So I'm going to click on PyCharm to take us to the PyCharm page. And once you're on the PyCharm page, just click on download. PyCharm comes with two versions. So we have the professional version, which is fully fledged. This is paid for, but it also allows you to try it out for a while. And then we have the community version, which is lightweight, but is completely free. So I will be downloading the community version. So just click on download to begin the download. So we'll give it a few minutes, and that should start the download, and the download should have started. You can see this is the download bar. So once that bar completes to the end, that means it would have downloaded it, and then we can go ahead and run the DMG file, which will enable us to copy the PyCharm application into our applications folder on our Mac. Once the download has completed, you should see that in your downloads folder. So if you click on your downloads folder, it tells you the name of the file that was downloaded. So let's open it in Finder by clicking on this, and that is the downloaded file. So I'm just going to minimize this other screen so we can see the screen properly. So I'm just going to double click to extract the DMG file, and once that is extracted, we should be able to just drag it into our application folder. Just going to double click again to make sure. All right, so it's doing it now. Just give it a few minutes to complete. So it's completed the extraction. We just need to drag this into the applications folder to complete the installation. So I'm just going to drag and drop. It says copying it. So that has completed. I'm just going to exit. Now, if I open up Finder, we should be able to go to the applications folder, and you can see we have PyCharm CE. CE is a community edition. So this concludes this video where we downloaded and installed PyCharm. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can change the editor theme in PyCharm. I have already got PyCharm opened, and I've got a file in there, and this is the content of the file. This area here is called the editor view. So if I wanted to change the theme basically is the background color here, and it also affects the text, the keywords that you use when you're writing your code. So to do that, you click on File, and then there are two places that you can change your theme. So click on Settings. The first is in Appearance. So go to Appearance, and under Appearance you click on Appearance, and if you click on Theme, you've got just these three options under that. However, if you come here and under the editor, make sure you've got the editor selected, because that's the bit we are interested in. Under the editor, you click on this option that says color scheme. So click on the color scheme, and within the scheme, if you click on the drop down, you have more options. So just go through each one and then check the background of the editor and see if that suits you. So the one I'm going to change to is called Monokai. I like this theme, so I'll click OK and then go back to my editor. You can see that it has changed. So you can see here the keywords here are now in blue, and any text enclosing quotes is going to be in yellow. So just play around with different themes. If I wanted to go back and try a different theme, I just go to File, I go Settings, and under the color scheme again, say I want to try, say this one that says Twilight. Click on that, click OK, and you can see it gives me a different view which I don't like. So I'm just going to go back to Settings and go back to my Monokai. So feel free to experiment and also change your theme. So that's it for this video on how you can change your editor theme in PyCharm. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. To begin the configuration of PyCharm, you need to open up the PyCharm application from your applications folder. So this is my applications folder, and this is PyCharm. So I'm just going to click to launch PyCharm. So when you launch PyCharm for the first time after installation, you may get this message pop up. Just click open, and that should begin the launch of PyCharm. So you may get this option that comes up asking you to import settings. If this is the first time you are setting up PyCharm, there will be nothing to import. So just click OK, and it gives you this licensing agreement. Just click on the box that says I confirm that I have read and accept the terms of this user agreement. Once you've done that, click continue, and you get this option here. If you want to send information, just click don't send. So you get this interface about the key map scheme, and you have two options here. I've never used PyCharm before. I used PyCharm before, so I'll leave the default checked and just click next. You can click to skip if you wish to do so and just accept all the default settings. So I'm going to click next, and here it's talking about the UI theme. A theme basically is the background of the PyCharm. If you want a lighter background, this is how it will look. If you prefer a darker theme, which is checked on default, you can leave this darker theme, but you can always go back to change it later. It tells you where you can change it in the preferences, under appearance and behavior, and then in the appearance bit you can change the theme back if you want to switch. For now, I'm going to accept the default theme and click next to launch script. Now basically it's asking you to create a launching script. Create a script for opening files and project. If you wish to do so, you can. If not, you can skip it. At this point, I'm going to click skip and accept, skip remaining and set the default, because from now on it's not really that much to do. You can always go back and change stuff later. So I'm going to click on that, and that would begin the launch of PyCharm. So when you have this PyCharm screen launched, first thing you want to do is configure. So click on this configure button here, and under the configure there is an option for preferences. So click on preferences. Okay, and under preferences there's a lot of things you can do here. Again, if you want to change the theme, that's where you can change it. If you don't like the dark one, you want to go light, just click on the drop down and you have the option to change. There are different things you can also change here. Okay, so you just feel free to look through at your own convenience. But what I want to set up here is the interpreter. Interpreter is basically what we interpret all the code we write so that the computer can understand. So we need to set that up. So click on here where it's called project interpreter. Now there is an option. If you've used it before, it'll give you the options. If you click on the drop down, it will have the interpreter, but because we've just setting this up for the first time, we need to select where the interpreter is. So normally you can select this from the directory where Python was installed. So click on this option here, and that will click add, and that will kind of like give you this option where you can browse to where Python was installed. So it's telling you here you can use the base interpreter, which is located in this location here, which is Python 3.7. Now this I want to use the base interpreter. If you've used PyCharm before, you can use the existing environment. Also here there are other options here. There is inherit global and site packages. So if you want a package that you add to be inherited globally throughout your computer, you can do that. You can make available to all projects. I'm going to leave this option unchecked for now because I don't want to tie down to anything. You can always go back there later. Notice here we've got virtual env selected. If you want to create a virtual environment, so I'll leave that for now. Don't want to complicate things. So click on system interpreter. So this is the interpreter I want the system to use. You can see the interpreter is selected is Python 3.7. I'm going to go with that. I'll click OK. All right, and you can see it's setting everything up. So now we've got the project interpreter. So anytime we are creating a project, it's going to interpret it using Python 3.7, and these are other stuff packages that is going to use as well. So once you're done, just click OK. So that's the interpreter setup. We'll wait for it to finish updating the Python interpreter. Once that has finished updating, it will then give you back the original screen where you'll have an option to create a new Python project. So I'll give this a few minutes to complete. So now that has completed, you back to the original screen here. Now we can go ahead and create a new project. So click on this button to create a new project. You have to give the project a name, and it tells you this is the location where the project is going to be stored. So I'm just going to remove the default name, which is untitled. I'll just call it Python course. All right. And project interpreter, click on this drop down here to select the interpreter I'm going to be using. I will be using this one here, existing interpreter, which is Python 3.7. That's the one I have checked. I'll click create. Okay, and that will create the new project. You will get this welcome screen. Feel free to read through. If not, just close. You get this each time you open PyCharm, unless you uncheck this option here not to show it. So click close, and here basically you've got the project that's been created. Next thing I want to do is create a Python file. So to do that, you just right click on this project that I created called Python course. Right click, go new, and there's an option for Python file. So create that. I'm just going to give it a name. I'll call it greeting, and it will save it with a .py extension because it's a Python file. So I'll click OK, and that will create the file. You can see it's created a file here called greeting.py, which is here. So I'm just going to type in a simple code here. I'm just going to say print, and inside that print parentheses I'm going to just say hello world. I got a double P here. I need to get rid of one of the P's. All right, so that effectively is a complete Python statement. Just one line of code here to say hello world. So I'll save that. I just do Command and S. If you're on a window, you do Control and S. So now that has been saved. To run that, we've got a little play button here, but that play button is not activated the first time. To activate it, you need to run the file from here. So right click on the file that says greeting.py, and there's an option here that says run greeting. Okay, so click run, and you can see here this area here is called the console. All right, or the terminal. You can see it's outputted this line of code here inside the terminal. This area here is called the terminal or the console, where you can output the code that you run from within the editor. This area here also has the Python console. Python console is different from the terminal. The Python console is basically the Python shell. So if I click on this now, you can see the shell. This is the interactive shell. So if I say 2 + 2 and press enter, it will return 4, because this is an interactive Python shell. So I'm going to click on this X to close the console, and this area is the editor area. See, now that we've run the code the first time, anytime we want to run it again, we don't need to right click on this. We can just go here. You can see the file is highlighted here. If you have multiple files you want to run, you can click on the drop down and then select which one you want to run. At the moment, because we've already executed this file, it's showing up there. So if I want to run it again, I just click on this play button, and you can see here it displays here. Notice also here it tells me the path where this file is stored. So if I wanted to run this file outside of this integrated development environment inside PyCharm, I just go to this location here, grab this file, and then run it from my terminal. All right, so it's very important to know the location of the file. So this file here, greeting.py, is located in this location. So that is it for this video. In this video, we configured PyCharm. We also created and ran a Python file. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some basic configuration setup of PyCharm on a Windows-based computer. When you launch PyCharm for the first time after installation, you should get a screen like this that asks you to import PyCharm settings. This usually happens if you've got PyCharm installed previously and you are installing maybe a different version and you've got some settings saved. By default, you should have do not import settings check. So make sure that setting is checked and then just click OK to progress to the next screen. So this is my PyCharm icon. I'm just going to click on it to launch it. So the very first screen you get is the previous screen I showed you. Once you've got that, it then presents you with this screen here. Just click the box that says I confirm and click continue. If you click reject, it will exit. So make sure you click continue, and that will give you this screen on data sharing. Just click don't send. So it's asking you to send some data on your usage. So for now, click don't send, and it then tries to launch PyCharm. So give it a few minutes to launch. Once it launches, we can begin the basic configuration setup. PyCharm is a very powerful IDE for Python, and it has lots and lots of stuff in there. So we're just going to focus on the very basic configuration settings to get you up and running with PyCharm. So this is what you get. Click on this configure option here and click settings, and we just wait for it to come, and then you get the options like this. So this is the settings page. On this page you can change different things. You can see we've got appearance highlighted. This is the appearance interface where you can change stuff. This is the default theme, which is the background color you can see. If you want to change, you can change that. Say for example, I want a darker theme. I'll click on that and that will give me a darker theme. So if I click apply, you can see the theme has changed to a darker view. So there are different configuration settings here. If you want to do different things, if for example I've got the editor here, the editor is where you write your code. There is an option here called font. If I wanted to change the size of my font, if it tells you here this is the current size, if I wanted to change it, say for example to 20 in size, and it gives me what it will look like. So again, I can accept that, and there is an OK button here. I just click OK to accept that setting. I have not quite finished with the configuration. I need to go back in and click settings, and what I want to do next is set up the project interpreter. The interpreter is very important. It is what interprets the code you write into a code that the machine can understand. So I'm just going to move this up a bit so you can see here. And the bit I'm interested in is this bit here that says project interpreter. So I'm going to click on it, and that will give me this interface. So here you can see here there's no interpreter selected, so I need to add an interpreter. So you can see I've got a drop down here, there's no interpreter. So here in this sign here, I can click add to add the interpreter. So you can see here is giving me some suggestion of where the interpreter could be. I've got Python 3.7, so it's pointing to that directory, so I want to accept that. So I don't want to use a virtual environment, so I'm going to click on System Interpreter. All these settings can always be changed later. So it's got my interpreter selected as that, Python 3.7. What that means is that any code I write will be interpreted in this version of Python. All right, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to click on this OK button, and that will try to load the package list that I can use with the interpreter. So it's giving me, I'm going to be using pip and setup tools. So once I am happy with that, I'll click on the OK button here, and that will start updating the Python interpreter. Once the interpreter has been updated, you're back to the welcome screen here. You've got option to create a new project, to open a project, to check out from version control. So I'm going to click this button to create a new project. Click on that, and it gives you the location. This is very important, where your project will be stored. It gives you a default name of untitled. So I'm going to change that untitled and just type in Python course. You can type in whatever name you like. And then here under project interpreter, I'm going to click on that to expand it to make sure I've got the interpreter I need. It says new environment, using virtual environment. I don't want to use a virtual environment at this moment. So I'm going to check this box that says existing interpreter. So it's going to use this interpreter that I have, which points to where my Python was installed. I'm going to click create, and that will create the project. So once the project is created, you get this screen that says tip of the day. This screen pops up every time you launch PyCharm, and there's a checkbox here. If you don't want it to show up, just uncheck it. But I recommend you leave it because it might have some useful tips. You can just close it for now. And this is the interface you get. That's the project that has been created. So I'm going to end this part of the video here, and we'll continue in part 2, where we will create a Python file. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to the part 2 of the PyCharm basic configuration setup on a Windows computer. We'll continue from where we left off in part 1. PyCharm has an integrated text editor that allows you to write Python code. So we're going to create a Python file and just write maybe one line of code just to test it out. So to do that, where I've got my project name, that's where I want to create the Python file so that it is contained inside that directory. So I'll right click, and there's an option for new, and there's option for new file. But what's more important, we want a Python file. So we click on that option for Python file. We'll give it a name. I'm going to call it greeting, and it will automatically save that as a Python file. So I'll click OK, and you can see here it's created the file greeting.py inside my project directory called Python course. So this is the editor area. This is where I can now write my Python code. So I'm just going to write just one line of code here. I'll do print, I do parentheses, and I do my quotes. I just say hello world. All right, and that is basically my line of code. This is a complete statement, complete valid code. So to save that, I do a Control and S, or I can come here and do file and just click save as, or just click save. There's an option on the bottom here also that says save all. So there are various ways you can save your work. Now this file here is a file that I can execute inside this integrated environment inside PyCharm. I don't need to leave PyCharm to run this file. So to run this file, there is a play button, but the play button is not automatically activated. So to do that, here on the left where I've got the name of the file, I'll right click and there's an option to run the file. You can see the name of the file here. I click run and that will execute inside this area here. This area here, you can see the code here. This line of code I've written here is being outputted inside this area here. This area is called the terminal or the console. Okay, some people call it console, some people call it the terminal. So this is where the code outputs. Another thing to take note is this line here. It tells you the location of the file. So if, for example, I wanted to run this file outside of this integrated environment, I can just browse to the location of this file and then just run it directly in my command prompt or my terminal outside of this PyCharm integrated environment. Another thing I want you to note is that you notice that this play button now is now active. So if I want to run this file on future occasions, I don't need to come here and right click. I can just click on the play button because it's now selected here in the list. If I have other files I create, I will also have them listed. I can go there to make sure they are there and then click on the play button. Also integrated inside the PyCharm, we've got the Python console. Python console is different from the terminal, is the interactive shell. So if I click on it, you'll see the symbol here. You can see it's the interactive shell that allows you to interact with Python. So the Python console is the Python shell, while the terminal is actually where the code is outputted. The difference within the Python console and the terminal is that with the Python console, you interact. You type in a line of code, you get a response and so on. Whereas when you are working with the terminal will just output the line of code. For example, here, if I run this code again, all it does, it just gives me the output for the line of code. So there's a key difference between the terminal and the Python console. Let's say I want to run my Python file outside of my PyCharm environment. I can just go to the location of the file, which is indicated here in my terminal. So I've just got it here. So it's on my drive. That's it here. It's got a folder called PyCharm projects. And inside that, I've got the project called Python course, which is that. And inside that Python course, I have got my file, which is called greeting. So if I want to execute or run this file outside my PyCharm, I can do that. I will just navigate to this location. This is it here. I have navigated to the location. It's in this directory here. You can see I've changed directory to PyCharm project, which is this directory here. And then I've also changed PyCharm project is where your projects are stored in PyCharm. So you locate that directory, and inside that directory, you can see I've changed directory to this directory called Python course. And it's inside here that my file greeting.py is. So if I want to run that file inside my command prompt, which is outside the PyCharm IDE, I just come here and type in the name of the file, which is greeting.py, and press enter, and that should execute. You can see it's executed the code here, and that's the same thing it has done when you run it inside the editor. So if I click on play here, it does the same thing here, that I'm able to run inside my command prompt, which is outside the PyCharm environment. So it's very important to know the location of the file. in case you want to run that file outside the PyCharm integrated environment. So this concludes the two-part video series on basic PyCharm setup configuration on a Windows-based computer. Note this is just the basic configuration settings because PyCharm is very powerful. There are other stuff you can set up inside it, but to just get you up and running, we've done the very basic. Feel free to go through the help menu inside PyCharm and read through more about other things you can do with it. Thanks for watching and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. Functions are an important part of programming in Python. They help us keep our programs organized and makes it possible for us to reuse the code we write. There is a principle in software development which all good programmers try to follow. It is called DRY principle, D-R-Y, which stands for don't repeat yourself. In other words, it means don't write the same code twice. Now, functions can help you avoid writing the same code twice. So what are functions? Functions are basically a collection of computer code which can be executed anywhere in your program and also used over and over again. So they are reusable. And these block of codes always do something specific. The beauty about functions is that they are reusable. They execute or run when they are called, and you usually call them by their name. So when you create a function, in order to activate it, you need to run it or call it by the name you have given it. They can have parameters. Parameters are basically variables that you define inside the function parentheses. And also they can have arguments. Arguments are the actual value that you give to the function when you call the function. They can return data as a result. So if you want the functions to return data, they can also do that. Functions are built in and they can also be custom created. Example of the built-in functions we have used so far is print. The print is a function which allows you to print stuff on the console. You can also create your own custom functions which are called user-defined functions. Creating a function is fairly straightforward. Before you create a function, it's good to think of a descriptive name that you want your function to have. The naming convention for a function is the same as the naming convention for variables. To create a function, you start with the def keyword, which indicates you're about to create a function, and then you give the function a name, followed by parentheses, and then the colon. The colon basically tells the Python interpreter that you're about to start a new line of code. So whatever code you write here is the block of code that gets executed when the function is activated. When you define functions inside the parentheses can be empty, or you can pass in what is known as parameters. Parameters are basically variables that you define inside the function. When you activate your function, you can also give it a value that matches the parameter you set. That value is referred to as an argument. So I've already got a directory. I'm just going to right click on the directory, click on new, and click on Python file. I'm going to call it functions, and it will automatically append it with a .py file extension. So I'll click OK, and that was created the file called functions.py. Create a function. You start with the keyword def, you do a space, and then you give the function a name. I'm going to call my function sum, and then you add the parentheses. Inside the parentheses you can add parameters, or you can leave the parentheses empty. So I'm going to add a couple of parameters which are variables. I'm going to call this x, I'll do a comma, and I'll call this y. And once you're done, you add a colon. The colon basically tells Python that you want to start a new line of code. So here now is what is called the function body. This is the code that will execute when the function is activated. So I'm just going to say x plus y. So that is it. We have created a function. Now the x and y are known as parameters. Okay, so when this function activates, it will print the value of x plus the value of y. Once you have created your function, the function does nothing until the function is activated. Now the process of activating the function is called calling the function. It also has other names. You can call it executing the function or invoking the function. So any phrase you hear relating to call, running, executing, invoking, they all mean the same thing. And when you call a function, you call it by its name and you add the parentheses. Now, if you have defined some parameters during the function definition, then you need to pass in some arguments when you call the function. Those arguments are the values that you give for the parameters you have set in the function definition. So to activate or call this function that we've created, we need to call it by its name, and the name is sum. So we'll say sum, and then we add the parentheses. Now notice that we had two parameters defined inside the function. We've got x and y. So now we need to supply the values for x and y. Those values are known as arguments. So if I say 4, 5, and that basically calls the function, passing those two values for the parameters I have set, and then it will execute the function. So let me save that and then play the file. So I click on play, and you can see here it's returned the value of 9. Okay, so is added because here I've said print x plus y. So when I call the function, I passed in two values, 4 for x and 5 for y, and it returned the value of 9. So that's how you call a function once you have defined the function. It is good to know the difference between parameter and argument. Sometimes this can confuse beginners. A parameter is actually like a variable that you define inside the function's parentheses, while an argument is the actual value that you pass or give to the function when you call the function. So in our function, x and y are the parameters, while the number 4 and 5 are the actual arguments for those parameters. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. If you want a function to return a value, you need to use the return keyword inside the function definition. So let's create a basic function. So I'm going to create a function called sum, and inside the parentheses I'm going to give it two parameters, x and y. And once I've done that, I will add my colon and press enter. And then instead of adding a function body or the code that will execute, I can just add a return and I can tell it what to return. I want it to return the value of x plus y. So that's basically how you use the return keyword. To call this function to return a value, I can use the print function. So I can say print, and inside that print function, I can add the name of my function, which is called sum, and I'll add a parentheses and then passing some arguments for the parameters. So I'll say 4, 5, and I'll just create another one below. I'll say print, and again, the name of my function, I add the parentheses and I'll just pass in 2 other arguments. So now what this should do, when I play the file, it should print out or return the value of 4 and 5. So which are these 2 are arguments, these 2 are arguments for the parameters. So let me click on the play button, and you can see here it's returned some value. So when I call the print function, I passed in the function, which is sum, and then passed in some argument 4 and 5. I said here in the return statement to return the value of x plus y, which is what it has done here. X is 4, y is 5. So if you add them together, I give you 9. Same thing here on line 5. 8 is x and 4 is y. If you add them together, it gives you 12. So that's basically how you use return keyword inside your function definition. Thank you for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. What is a default parameter value? This is the value that a function uses when it is called without passing it a value. So when you call a function without a parameter, it uses the default value. Only parameters at the end of a parameter list can have a default value. This is because the values are assigned by their position. So if you have several parameters, you can only give the last parameter in the list a default value. In the first example here, now this is a proper way of assigning a default parameter value, because this has 2 parameters, parameter A and parameter B. Because of the way the values are assigned by their position, you can only give a default parameter value to the last parameter inside the function definition. So this is the proper way, and this one is not the right way, because you see here I'm giving it a default value here when it should be at the end of the parameter list. Let's create a new function. So I'm going to create a function called student underscore names, and inside the parentheses I'm going to define just one default value. So I'm going to call it names. Names is going to be the parameter. I'm going to use the equals to sign to assign a value to the parameter. I'm going to call it blue line. So that is the parameter names, and this is the default value. So I add my colon and tab, and I'll start a new line of code. So inside my function body, I want to add a print function, and inside that print function, I want the print function to say hello plus the student's name. So I will just do a space and add a addition operator, and then add the name of my parameter. So my parameter here is called names. So what I'm saying, once I run this code, any values I pass to it, it will print out hello plus whatever name I passed to the function. So let's try and call the function and pass it some arguments. So to call the function, you call the function by its name, which is called student underscore names. And then inside the parentheses, I can pass in different names. So let's say for this one, I'm going to leave it blank. I'm just going to copy this a couple of times. So inside the names here, I'm going to add in some strings. Because they are strings, you need to enclose it in quotes. So the first one here, I'll say John. And for this one here, I'm going to add Jane. All right. So notice the first one here, line number 5, I have not passed in any value. So what's going to happen when I execute this code is going to use the default value that I have set inside the parameter here that I defined. So let me save my code by pressing Ctrl and S. If you're on a Mac, you can do Command and S. So once you've saved your code, play the file. So I click on play and you can see the output. When I call the function, I did not pass in any value for the first student name, and it then used the default value, which was blue line. Line 6, I passed in the name John, so it says hello John. Line 7, I passed in the name Jane, it says hello Jane. So inside the function body, I did say I wanted to print the word hello plus whatever names I have supplied. So the names I've supplied when I called the function was John and Jane. I didn't supply a name for blue line because blue line here is a value, the default parameter value for this names variable. So that's basically how you use parameter default value. The key thing to note is that where you have several parameters defined, you can only give the default value to the last parameter in the list. So if you have several parameters, you separate them by a comma and you can only add a default value to the last one. This is because of the positioning. Okay, the values are assigned by position. That's it. Thank you for watching and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. What are keyword arguments? Keyword arguments allows you to specify what parameters you want to use from a list of parameters that you define inside your function. You do not need to worry about the order of the arguments. Keyword arguments allows you to give values only to the parameters that you want, provided that the other parameters have default argument values. So let me illustrate by just defining a function here. I'm going to define a function. I'm going to call it more underscore num. And inside the parentheses, I'm going to pass in some parameters. So I'll say A, that'll be the first one. And then I'll say B equals to 7, which is a default parameter value, and C equals to 10. So I'm going to add my colon and tab down, and I'll add just a simple print function. And inside the print function, I'm just going to add a text that says A is, and I'll do a comma, add the parameter or variable A, and I'll do another comma. I'll add another text and I'll say and B is, I do a comma and add the variable b. All right. I'll do another comma and I'll add another text, and I'll say while c is, I'll do a comma and then add the variable c. So if you notice in the definition, only the parameter a has no default argument value. The parameter b and c have default argument value. So now if I wanted to call this function, I can call it by its name. I'll say more underscore num, and then I'll pass in some values. So I'll just say 3 and 7. I'll do another one. I'll say more underscore num, and I'll pass this value, say 23. I'll say c. I'm changing the value of c now. I give it 17, and I'll do one more. I'll say more underscore number, and inside the parentheses I'm going to change the value of c again to 40, and I'm going to set the value of a to say 80. Note that you can specify the argument values in any order. So let me play my file and then you can see the output. So this is the output. You can see here the first calling of the function here on line 4. I passed it 2 arguments. The first one here is for, you can see here it says a is 3 and b is 7, while c is 10. I've given it 3, and that 3, it gave that to the variable parameter a, and the b is for 7, while the c is using the default value of 10, the default. All right. And then on the line 5 here, where I've called the function again, I have changed the value of a, and I give the a 23 because I didn't set a value here, so it's easy for me to just give it any value. Remember that you use the equals to assign a value. So a here is 23, b is still 7, but I changed the value of c to 17. You can see it says while c is 17. Use the equals to sign to change the value. Line number 6, where I call the function again, I change the value of c to 40 and value of a to 80. And you can see here it says a is 80, b is still 7, while c is 40. So notice the order of execution. You can specify the argument values in any order as I've done here. However, when it prints in the order in which the parameter has been defined, but the way the argument is supplied, that order it doesn't really care about. It will print out in the order of the parameter, but the argument parameter can be passed in any order. So that's it for this video. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. I'll be happy to explain further. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you an illustration how you can use functions to return other functions. So basically, we're using a function to generate another function. Let's start by defining a function. So I'm going to define a function. I'm going to call it greetings, but you can call your functions whatever name you like. Then I'll add the colon, and then I'll press enter to indent my code. And I'm going to define another function. I'm going to call this function say underscore hello, and I'm going to add the colon, press enter to indent. I'm going to add a return. So I want it to return a string. So I'm just going to say hello, but you can type in whatever you wish to do. Next thing I want to do is add a return statement so that I can call the function. So I'll say return space and then the name of the function, which is called say underscore hello. So this line 4 here enables the function to be called. Create a variable. Again, notice the level of indentation, so make sure you indent correctly. I'm going to create a variable called hello, and I'm going to set that variable to equals to the function called greeting. And then what I can do, I can add a print statement. So I'll do a print. Inside that print function, I'm passing the hello. Okay, this hello here. So because here I've created a variable hello and I've assigned it to this function called greeting. So I'm now using this hello here to call the function. So to run the content of this file, which is functions4.py, I've navigated to it inside my command prompt. I just need to type in the name of the file, which is called functions4.py, and press enter. And you can see here it's executed the text hello, which is the text I stipulated here in the return statement on line 3. So this is how you can use a function to generate another function. That is, you're using functions to return another function. So that's it for this video. I hope the video has been helpful. Thanks for watching and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a function and then assign the function to a variable and then use that variable to call the function. I am going to be using a text editor called Atom, but feel free to use whatever text editor that you are comfortable with. So this is my Atom text editor. So I've created a blank file and I've saved it as functions.py. Feel free to call yours whatever name you like. So this is my file that I've called functions.py. So to create a function, you have to use the keyword def space followed by the name you want to call the function. I'm going to call my function my num, and I'm going to pass in a parameter. I'll just call the parameter x, and then I'll add a colon, tab, and then I'll just add a simple return statement so that it returns some kind of expression. So I'll say return the value of x plus 1. So whatever is supplied as the value of x, it will add 1 to it. So make sure your indentation is also correct. If not, it will not work when you try to run the code. So now I have defined my function. I'm now going to create a variable and assign the function to that variable. So I'll create a variable called num and I'll assign it to my function, which is called my num. Okay, so here on line 3, the variable num is going to be assigned the function my num. So what I can simply do, I can call the function which I've created by using the variable. So I can just say print, and inside the parentheses for the print function, I'll pass in the variable num, and then I'll pass in an argument for the parameter x. For me to execute the code inside this file, which is this file on my desktop, I need to run it from my command prompt. If you're on a Mac, you can do that on your terminal. So first thing you need to do is navigate to the directory where the file is. You can see I've navigated to my desktop, which is where this file called functions.py is. So to execute the code inside the file, all I need to do is type in the name of the file, which is functions.py, and press enter, and that will return the value 8. So now if we look here, we can see that's what the code is saying here. The return statement says whatever value I supply for X, I need to add 1 to it. So you can see here on line 5, in the print function, I have supplied the number 7 as an argument to the parameter X. So when that executes, it adds 1 to it. As you can see here, the result is 8. So this is an example of creating a variable and assigning that variable to a function. So you use the variable to call the function, which I have done here. Now I can still reference the function directory. So if I go print, and inside that print function, I call the actual function, which is my num, and I can pass it a value. So I can say 8. So this will still execute. So if I run that, I will get 2 things returned. Line 5 will give me 8, and line number 6 will give me 9. So let me run that so that you can see. You can see here I've got 8 and 9 respectively, which is the output for line number 5 and number 6. So that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to create a function and then assign the function to a variable, and then use that variable to call the function. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to explain the difference between a global variable scope and a local variable scope. Variables that are defined inside a function have a local scope. Variables defined outside a function have a global scope. Global variables can be accessed from anywhere within your Python file, while the local variables can only be accessed inside the functions it belongs to. You can use the global keyword inside a function definition to make the value of a local variable global. Let me explain how the global and local variable scope works. So to begin, I'm going to create a global variable. So I'll call it X, and I'll give it a value of 10. And then I'll create my function. I'm going to create a function called my underscore numbers. This is going to be my function, and inside the parentheses I'm just going to pass in a parameter called X, and I'll add my colon, and I'll add a print function, and inside that print function I'm going to get it to print the value of X. Then next I am going to define a local variable inside this function called X, and I'm going to give it a value of 7. Now this line 5 here is my local variable. Is different from the line 1, which is a global variable. So the X here cannot access the value of X outside that function. Next thing I want to do is add a print function, and then just add some text that will display when the function is called. So I just say my favorite number, is, and I will just do a comma and add X. That X is referring to here on line 6 is the value of the X in line 5. On line 4 here, I've told it to print X. The X is going to print is the value of X in line 1, because at this point, it cannot access the value of X on line 5. It's only able to access that value when I tell it to print on line 6 and I pass in the value of X. To call the function, I'll just call it by its name. I'll say my underscore numbers, and inside the parentheses, I'm just going to pass in the variable X. So let me play my file. I click on the play button, and you can see here is giving me some output. Let me just show you the output. Right. Line 4, I've told it to print X, and the X is printed is the value of X on line 1, which is this 10. And then on line 6 here, I've told it to print my favorite number is X. Now this X is referring to is the X that has a value of 7 on line 5. That's what it has printed here. Now, if I just run the print function by itself, I'll say print and pass in the value X, it is going to, the X is going to print is this X on line number 1, which is the global variable, because here I've not called the function, so it's not going to access this X inside the function. It's accessing this global X. So let me just save my file and then play the file again, and you can see the output. You can see here the first 10 is for the first print function on line 4, and line 6 here is this text, and then the other standalone print function I told it to print on line 10 is this 10 here. So the value of the global variable does not change. To change the original value of the global variable, I have to use the keyword global inside my function definition. So let me modify this code slightly so that we can change the value of the global variable. So here I will remove the parameter X and just tab down and type the word global space X. So what I'm saying here, I'm defining a variable called X and I am making it a global variable. Next thing I need to do here on line number 9, when I'm calling the function, because I didn't pass in any parameter here, I need to take it from there and just save my code and run the file again. And you can see that when I run this print function on line 11, it will change the value of this global variable scope to 7, just because of this keyword I added on line 4. So let me click on play. You can see here, let me go through the code with you. So the first print function on line 5, I told it to print X, and the X is going to print is the value of X on line number 1. The second print is on line 7. I told it to print this text plus the value of X. So it's printed at the value of X on line 6 inside my function, which is 7. Now I've gone outside the function. I'm just doing a print on X. Because I've used the global keyword on line 4, it is printed out 7. So it has changed the original value of the global variable from 10 to 7 just by using the keyword global. So that's the key difference between a variable that is in local scope and global scope. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to illustrate how you can create a function inside another function. That process is called nesting. In this video, I'm going to use the text editor called Atom to nest my function. So with Atom, to create a new file is fairly straightforward. You just click on the new tab and click new file, and then you name the file and save it wherever you want to. So I've created a file called functions2 and I've saved it on my desktop. Sometimes when you save files, it also puts the directory where the file was saved on this side on the left hand bar. So you can always remove it just by right clicking, and there is an option to remove project folder, and that gives you more room to work with. So let's start off by defining a function. So to define a function, just type in def space followed by the name you want to call the function. I'm going to call my function my num, and I am going to give it a parameter. I'm going to call the parameter a, and I'm going to add a colon and tab down, and then I'm going to define another function. This is going to be the function I am nesting. So I'm going to type in def again to create the function. I'll do a space and I'll give the function a name. I'm going to call it num, and inside the parentheses I'm going to pass in the parameter a for that function. So I'll do a colon and I'll tab down. I want to add a return statement so that some kind of expression is evaluated. So I'll say return the value that is supplied for a plus 1. So whatever value is passed for the parameter a, I want 1 to be added to it. Indentation is very important, so make sure that your code is well indented. If not, you will get errors. So the next thing I want to do is, after this return, is create a variable. So I'm going to create a variable that is going to return the value of that variable. So to create a variable, I'm just going to indent back so that I'm on the same line of indentation as this nested function. So I'm going to create a new variable called result, and I'm going to set the result to equals to my function called num, and I'm going to pass in the parameter a. Next thing I want to do is return the value of that variable called result. So I'm going to type in result, I'm going to type in return space result. So whatever the value is, I want the return statement to return that. Next thing I want to do is do a print statement. Again, notice the indentation. So I've got my print function is going to be on the same indent level as this outer function. So I type in print, and inside the print function, I am going to pass in the name of my function, which is the outer function, which is num, and I'm going to pass in an argument for the parameter a. So I'm just going to give it a value of 4, and then I'll save that and then run this file. The name of my Python file is called functions2, which is on my desktop. So inside my command prompt, I have navigated to my desktop. So in order to run the content of the file, all I need to do is call the file by its name. So I'll say functions2.py and press enter. and that will execute. You can see here is giving me the result here. So the return says whatever value I supplied for the parameter A is going to add 1 to it. So here in the print statement on line 6, I've supplied 4 as the argument for the parameter A, and this returns on line 3 here has added a 1 to it, hence we get 5. So you can see here I've nested a function on line 2 here inside another function on line 1. So that's basically how you can nest functions, which is creating a function inside another function. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to illustrate how nested functions can access the variable scope of an enclosing function's variable scope. Python allows a nested function to access the outer scope of the enclosing function. And this concept or pattern is referred to as closure. To begin, let's define some functions. I've already created a blank Python file on my desktop. I've called it functions5.py. So to create a function, you type in def, you do a space, give the function a name. I'm going to call mine display underscore message, and inside the parentheses I'm going to pass in a parameter called message, and I'll add my colon, and I'll press enter to indent my code. I'm just going to add a string that will just say hello, but you can say whatever you want on your text. I'm just going to try and keep it simple. And then I'm going to nest another function. So I'm going to tab so that the indentation is on the same level. So I'll type in def space, and I'll call the function message underscore sender, and I will pass in no parameters into that function. I'll add the colon, I'll press enter to indent the code. Again, I'm going to add some text. I'm just going to say nested function. And then I will add a print statement. So I'll just say print, and inside the parentheses I'm going to pass in the message parameter, which is this message here on line 1. I'm passing in that parameter into this print function, and then I'm going to tab down and move the indentation so that the indentation is the same level as this nested functions, and I'm going to call this function here called message underscore sender. So I'm going to call the function on line number 6. So to call a function, you just type in the name of the function. So I'll say message underscore sender, and I'll add the parentheses. The final thing I want to do here is call this function on line 1. So to call the function, again, you call the function by its name. So I'm going to say display, that's the name of my function, and I can just pass in some random string or text. So I'll just say show me the money. So that's just some random text that will be printed on the screen. So now let me run the contents of this file inside my command prompt. So this is the file here. It's called functions.py, and I've got my command prompt. I'm just going to navigate. I've navigated to my desktop, change directory. So to run the file, I'll just call the file by its name. So I'll say function5.py. I press enter, and you can see here it's displaying this text that says show me the money, which is this text here on line number 8. So when I call the function on line 1 here, this function called display underscore message, when I called it, I passed in this text, show me the money, and that's what it has displayed here inside the console. In this video, I've showed you how Python allows a nested function to access the outer scope of the enclosing function. This process or this concept is referred to as a closure. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. The parse statement is used to indicate an empty block of code inside a function definition. So let me create a very simple function to illustrate how the parse statement is used. So I'm going to create a function called dream underscore home, and I will not give it any parameters. I'll just add my colon, I'll tab down, and then just add the parse statement. So what this basically is doing is telling the Python interpreter that this function has no block of code. It hasn't got any statement. It's an empty function. So if I try to run this function by clicking on the play button, you can see nothing is returned. So that's basically how the parse statement is used in a function definition. Thank you for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be illustrating how you can pass functions as arguments to other functions. So it's possible when you create functions, you can also pass a function as a parameter to other functions. I have created a blank Python file on my desktop, and I've called it functions3.py. So that is the file here. So inside this file, I'm going to create a function and also pass another function as an argument. So to create a function, you type in the def keyword, you do a space, and then you give the function a name. I'm going to call my function my num, and you pass in a parameter. I'm going to call this parameter b. You can call it whatever you like, doesn't really matter. So I'll add a colon, I'll tab, and then I'll add a return statement so that whatever value is supplied for the parameter b, I want some kind of expression to occur. So I say return the value of b plus 1. So whatever value is supplied for the parameter b, I want 1 to be added to it. Next, I'm going to create another function and make sure your indentation is correct. So when you're creating functions on the same level of indentation, there is no nesting. So you need to be careful when you are creating them. Make sure they are on the same level to avoid nesting. So again, I type in the def keyword, do a space, and give the function a name. I'm going to call this add num. And then inside the parentheses, I'm going to pass in a parameter. So I'll just give the parameter a value of c. And then I'll add the colon, and then I'll tab, and then add a variable inside this function. So I'm going to add a variable. I'm going to call it variable new number, and I'm going to give it a value. I'm going to give it a value of say 7, and I'm going to tab, and I'll add a return statement. So I'll say return the value of this new variable called new num. Okay, Sorry, I just want to amend that a bit. I don't want to return the new, I want to return the parameter C. So that parameter C, I'm going to return that, and I am going to pass in into that parameter C. I'm going to pass in this variable called new number. So I'll say new number. So the next thing I can do, I can add a print statement, and inside that print function, I can pass one function into another. So inside the parentheses for the print function, I will pass in the function called add num, and inside the parentheses for that function, I'm going to pass in the function called my number or my num. So what should happen if I run this file in my command prompt? Whatever value I supply for the parameter b, 1 is going to be added to it. So in my print function on line 6, I'm calling this function called add number on line 3, and inside the parentheses for that function, I am passing in this function called my number. And notice that this function called my num has a parameter called b. So if you also notice here that this variable here, I've set that to equals to 7, and here on line 5 we're returning c, the parameter c, and we're passing in this value. All right, so the expression I expect to happen is that we're going to add 1 to the value of this 7. So I expect to return 8. So let me open my command prompt, navigate to my desktop, which is where this file is, and I just type in the name of the file, which is functions3.py, and I press enter. And you can see, as expected, is giving me the result of 8. So that's it for this video. In this video, I showed you how to pass a function as an argument into another function. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. What are variable argument parameters? They let you define variable number of arguments for a function, and they are identified by using the asterisk symbol. To illustrate how the variable argument parameters work, I'm going to define a function. So I'm going to call the function tool underscore numbers, and inside the parentheses I'm going to pass in a parameter a, and I'm going to assign it a value of 7. I'll do a comma, and I will add the asterisk, which will specify or indicate that I'm going to be using a variable argument parameter. So inside that, I'll give it a name. I'll say numbers. I'll do a comma, and I'll add another one. This time I'm going to do 2 asterisks, and I'm going to give this a name of phone book. So that is my parameter and argument, and I'll do a colon, and I'll tab down. I'll add some block of code. First one is going to be print, and I want to print a text that says my favorite number is, I'll do a comma, the variable a. All right, so notice the variable a is 7. So when this line of code prints, it's going to print my favorite number is 7. Note that when the asterisk parameter has just one asterisk, all the positional arguments from that point till the end are collected as a tuple. Okay, so this numbers here is going to be a tuple. When the argument has two asterisks, all the keyword arguments from that point till the end are allocated a dictionary. So this phone book here will be treated as a dictionary. So next line of code I want to add, I want to be able to iterate through all the items in a tuple. So this numbers is going to be a tuple. So to do that, I'm going to use a for loop. I'm going to say for num in numbers. Okay, I'll add the colon, and then I'll tab down, and I want it to print inside the parentheses. I will add num and then comma num. Next thing I want to do is iterate through all the items in the dictionary. So this phone book is going to be treated as a dictionary. So to do that, I'll say for name, comma, phone underscore number in phone book, and I'm going to add a method called dot items and add the parenthesis for that. I'll add a colon and tab down. So I'm going to tab down and add the block of code for this for loop that will print when that block is referenced. I'm going to say it's going to print name, comma, and it's going to print the phone underscore number. So to call the function, I'll just call the function by its name, which is total underscore numbers. And then inside the parentheses, we just pass in some value. Let me go over line number 10. This is where I'm calling the function called total underscore numbers, and I'm passing it some arguments. The first argument here, 7, is the value here of this parameter called 7. And then this numbers here, which is going to be a tuple, I'm giving it 3 values, 1, 2, and 3, which is what I'm iterating through on line 4 and 5. This is the Jane is the name, and the value here of 222 is equals to the phone number. So I've done that for 3 people. So now let me play my file so you can see the output. Now this is the output. You can see here. Let's go through the print statement. The first print statement is on line number 2, which says my favorite number is A. A is 7. So it says here my favorite number is 7. So let's look for the second print. Second print is on line number 5. So I'm iterating over this numbers, which is a tuple, and I'm telling it to print the values. So that's what is done here, because I've passed in some values, 1, 2, 3. So that's what is printed here, num1, num2, num3. And here on line number 8, I am printing, iterating over the content of the dictionary, over the dictionary items, and I'm printing the name and the phone number. So that is the name, and that's the phone number. So I supplied 3 names and 3 phone numbers, and these are the results you can see in the output. So the single asterisk parameter is treated as a tuple, and the double asterisk with the parameter phone book is treated as a dictionary. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and bye for now. Hello and welcome to this video. Anonymous functions are also called lambda. They are defined by using the lambda keyword. So when you define anonymous functions, you don't use the normal def function definition. Anonymous functions can take several arguments, but they can only have the one expression. Let's create an anonymous function. So I'm just going to say A, and I'm going to set that to equals to an anonymous function, which you define with the keyword lambda. All right, and then you can pass it several parameters. So I can say B, and I'll say B plus A, or B plus 4. I give it a value of 4, and then I can just do a normal print. I'll say print, and inside that print function I'll pass in the value of A, and in the parentheses I will add 4. So now let me save that and then run that so that you can see what the output looks like. So I click on play, and you can see here I've said print A, which is 4, because here A is the lambda here, and I'm saying B equals to B plus 4. Now this is A, and I'm giving B the value of 4. So it's saying BA, which is the function. I'm calling the function now, which is A, that's the anonymous function, and passing it a value, an argument of 4, which is for this parameter called B, and it's adding the value I've passed to 4. That's what gives you 8. Lambda can also take multiple arguments. So let's define another lambda function. So C, and I'll say equals to lambda, and I'll pass in some parameters. I'll say D, comma E, and then I would say D plus E. I'll add a print statement. I'll say print, and inside that print function I'll reference the anonymous function, which is C, and inside the parentheses for that anonymous function I'll pass in 2 arguments. I'll say 7, 8. So these are the arguments for the function. I'm just going to comment out line 1 and line 2 of my file so that those block of code do not run. So now I'm just going to play this file. I'll click on play, and you can see here it's giving me 15, which is when you add D plus E. This is the function here called C. I'm passing it 2 arguments for the parameter D and the parameter E, and when you add them together gives you 15. You can also use lambda functions when an anonymous function is required for a short period inside another function. So let me show you an example. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it ghost underscore numbers, or number, and inside the parentheses I'm just going to pass in the parameter n, and I'll add my colon. I'll tab down. I'm going to add a return. I'm going to say return lambda f colon, and I'm going to say f asterisk n. So this function here takes one argument, and that argument is going to be multiplied by an unknown number, okay, which is the n there. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it double underscore num, and I'm going to set it to equals to the function I created called ghost underscore number, and I'm going to pass in a value of 2 inside this function here called ghost number. So this variable is going to be equals to this function, which is this function I defined above. So now to call, I can do a print function on this variable on line 4, and what that would do, it will double any number I give it, because that's what I've said here on line number 2. So I can just do a print function. I'll say print, and inside that print function I'm going to reference the variable called double underscore number, and inside that parentheses I'm going to give it a value of 20. So what I expect is 40 back, because it's going to multiply it by n. The n is the 20, which is the unknown value I have now supplied. So let's run that. I'll click on play, and you can see here is giving me a value of 40. So anonymous functions can be quite useful sometimes, especially if you want to use it just for a short period of time inside another function like I have done here. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.